What's up, humans and non humans and hybrids and all of that? Top of the morning to you all. First of all, I want to address something that I just found out a couple minutes ago, which is that we got mixed up with the schedules, and I think Jason is not going to be available until an hour from now. So I told him that he can jump in 1 hour, but meanwhile, we're gonna just wing it. Um, First of all, I want to play you um, the song that I had been using for the first year of Psicoactivo. And it's from a friend of mine, one of my best friends from high school. His name is Mahler, and here it is. The song is called Juanito.
There is Juanito with the sun. He thinks that it is already done. The stars are shining and he don't care. That girl is walking on his head. You lose in time, my dear friend. Of this world that you think's not over, there is no end. There is no end. Oh, Juanito, you hopes are none. You think that it is already done, but you know, kid, think other way. There is always done. You don't have to care. Don't worry about that end. 'Cause the ends are always behind your sail. You don't need time. Just Juanito, grin and try. Hey, 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 there is no stock. It's just you know. Who can make you smile? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And please, just come to my side again. 'Cause I need you here. 'Cause I have been there. 'Cause I can wait you to hold me. 'Cause I can wait to say to you that I need you here. But that I want you there. There is Juanito with the sun. He thinks that it is already done. The stars are shining and he don't care. That girl is walking on his head. This is Juanito with the sun. He thinks that it is already done. The stars are shining and he don't care. That girl is walking on his head.
There it is. Thank you for listening to that. That song is the song I played every day for the first year of Psicoactivo. We're doing the Spanish podcast at first, talking about substances and all that. I had no idea that I was going to eventually talk about UFOs on this channel. Then it all happened. And this is the song that I used. This was gifted to me by my friend Mahler, who is from high school. He's Mexican like me. And the person who made the logo, his name is Luke. He's our friend too. So I wanted to share that with you guys and let me know what you think. But yeah, um, thank you for the super chat, Captain Ibrahimo. Go Pavel. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. We're starting off with some not so good news. We got a little mixed up with the schedules, and Jason is currently at a work meeting. So he told me that right after he comes out of it, he's gonna try to jump into the stream. We're gonna be here for I think a couple of hours, and I did want to um, start off with something that I just found out about this morning, which is really strange. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but um, it says, notice federal US website newly registered aliens.gov. I just hope that this is not like an immigration thing. Would be really disappointing. But it wasn't the only one that was quietly registered by the federal government. The other one is alien.gov. And let's start with just asking you guys, what do you think about this? Do you think it's an immigration thing, or could this be something entirely different? Interesting development this morning. So we're still waiting for the interview that Jeremy Corbell is going to drop on Weaponized, and we already have a little hint at who might be. And we already kind of knew. He already kind of announced it, but we got a hint that it's going to be Matthew Brown. And this was an in studio interview. I don't know where they recorded, but I know that they did it in studio. So this is going to be exciting. While we wait for that, and you can start already, if you want, asking a few questions, all caps, if that's okay with you, if we want to start here. But we have breaking news. We have the new S4 Project Gravatar trailer that is going to drop on April 3rd. So we're going to watch the trailer right now, and then we're going to react to it. So here it is. Are you guys ready?
Physical evidence now exists which proves that there is life elsewhere, and at least one form of that life has been here. As of 1989, that evidence was in the custody of the United States government. Between December of 1988 and April of 1989, I worked as a senior staff physicist in what has to be the most secret project in history. My job in this program was to be part of a back engineering team. This particular disc appeared to be in excellent condition, and because of its sleek appearance, I nicknamed it the Sport Model. The goal in this program was to see if the technology of the disc could be duplicated with Earth materials. To start up the reactor, of course, we need some element 115. In fact, you need 223 grams, machined into a wedge like this. The program out at S4 consisted of 3 projects: Project Galileo, Project Sidekick, and Project Looking Glass.
The file on top was Project Galileo, and as it turned out, that's the project that I was part of. And that clearly referred to reverse engineering a recovered alien spacecraft.
Just cannot be a secret from anyone, not just the American people, but the rest of the world.
All this stuff is something that happened to him. It's not who he is.
They're doing everything they can to keep this information secret.
That's empirical evidence. I saw a craft to do that, thanks to him.
Now this story spills, and the world changed.
Amazon worldwide. Interesting, right? What do you guys think? Um, yeah, it's sort of what I was kind of expecting, and this is like a whole new, um, like, um, a strategy, because it's gonna be sort of like a they're gonna take you inside S4, and they're using really cool new technology. So I'm excited for the Bob Lazar film. I don't know what you guys think, but let me know. I wanted to explain a little bit of why I wanted Jason Samosa here. And to those who just came in here, he's gonna be a little late because he's in a work meeting right now. But I do want to talk about his work generally overall, because since he came out on YouTube, he started doing these first deep dives into the more geopolitical, religious aspect of everything that's going on. And he was one of the first channels that I saw that was brave enough to talk about this, um, from like a more analytical perspective, and not like a news channel like me, and when I started looking at his channel, I was already simultaneously looking at Josh from Polarity. And I think that those two guys are like a really good new addition to the overall ecosystem of content creators, because they are foreigners, first of all, but they're also not shying away from talking about the quote unquote taboo subjects. And I do appreciate that. I already had them on my channel together once, and then I had Josh on. I hadn't had Jason on yet. Hopefully, he gets out of the meeting. Um, as soon as he gets out, hopefully, he comes here and we can have a little chat about his latest video, which is about the Collins Elite. Um, this is like a group that isn't that well known. Jason used um, a couple of books to explain a little bit of what they might be, but there isn't really like a specific, um, like really well known group. I mean, if there is like a secret project that started in the 50s, which is what Jason Samosa proposes in his video, it's been very secretive. And I do worry a lot about these more fundamentalist religious people with a lot of power that have been, and we're not fooling anybody, they have been socially engineering the world for a while. And I'm not just talking about the religion aspect of it, they're also like they're intertwined with all of the old families in the world. And these old families are the ones that are really, really in power, um, as far as I'm concerned. And I just have seen multiple different cautionary tales, and everything that's going on right now, it's still impossible to tell who might be the one behind all of these scientists getting killed and all of these scientists disappearing, many of them working on stuff that is UFO related or UFO adjacent, you know. And we still don't know who's behind all of this stuff. We have no idea if there's anybody behind, but it's just like an awfully strange coincidence that in 8 months, about five different scientists who work on edge technology and are related to the UFO topic in some way have been disappearing or passing away or being killed. And one of the groups that seems like the more uh, probable candidate to have anything to do with this would be one of those, the Collins Elite, or a group that is similar to them, because it's very clear to me that the more religious people that are in power are sort of like trying to get into the end time scenario. And depending on the religion that they practice, they each have their own interpretation of what's supposedly going to happen in this end time scenario. And that is something that I do want to discuss with Jason. because I don't know if you guys are aware, he's told this story a number of times. He was like a hardcore Christian, and he read the Bible quite extensively, and he understands that side of religion very well. But he moved away from it. Now he's analyzing it with all that knowledge that he gathered along the way. And I think that that's a very valuable position to be in for Jason because, for example, me, and I've said this constantly, that I don't really have deep knowledge into ancient scripture, and I know that sometimes I've sounded quite um, ignorant sometimes, which is why I don't talk about religion that much. And that's also another one of the reasons why I wanted to have Jason on, because he understands that very well, and he can educate me and everybody who's like not that well versed in these topics. But we do agree, both Jason and I, that it's like a really concerning path that humanity is taking right now. And I don't know if you guys saw, but yesterday there were a number of like meteorites and like objects falling from the sky, like six or seven in a week. um that was really strange. That kind of freaked me out. And I don't know if you guys are near like Ohio or Texas or other places where this happened, but it was kind of strange to see like the whole combined video, which I am going to show you because Red Panda Koala did like a combination of these videos, and it's really creepy. So let me show it to you just now. I'm gonna share my screen uh, and share Red's account because this is like a combination of all of these four sightings that happened over the last couple of days or something like that. So here it is. Wait, that was a mistake from me. I'm sorry. I'm a rookie here. Okay, let's try it again. Here it is. Okay. So this is from Red Panda Koala's account. Um,
Kuşak semalarında. Bu ne?
Very strange, right? Sorry for the combined sound. That's how Red Panda did the editing. Shout out to Red Panda. So a lot of this stuff has been happening, and I saw even that I think it was Red too that posted that everybody owed Ryan Bledsoe an apology. That is not true. Sorry, but you guys know how I feel about that. Even if uh, he's right, even if Chris Bledsoe is right, I don't think that the way they're going about it is the right way. That's just my opinion. And like continuing to demand for people to just say your name whenever orbs are mentioned. I mean, come on, man. And you will continue to get trolled for that stuff because that's not cool. So yeah, those are interesting developments here, and I did want to mention to you guys why I decided to have Jason on. I hope that is a decent enough explanation. Um, so we're gonna just like try and keep um, waiting for the high noon interview of Matthew Brown, but I did want to mention a little bit of that because when Jeremy Corbell announced that Matthew Brown was going to be on again, I realized that the current situation with Michael Schellenberger, where he clearly already showed like his colors and that he supports these billionaires and He was on Rogan making a complete fool of himself, um, defending billionaires from the Epstein list and speaking up against Epstein victims. And even Joe was like, what the hell, man? He was really confused at what he was hearing. But if you have been paying attention to Michael Schellenberger's work recently, you will tell that his colors have shown very well. Like he is doing a little bit of propaganda for these billionaire friends that he has. Very, very disappointing. And as you guys know, the very first time that Matthew Brown ever came forward was with Michael Schellenberger on his publications, and I just keep wondering what Matthew Brown thinks about the recent activity from Schellenberger, and I hope that we're gonna get more information on that during that interview with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp on Weaponized. That's something that I can completely and hopefully expect that may happen in the interview. But I don't know if you guys agree there, but what would you like to see in this interview from Matthew Brown? What do you guys think he's going to talk about? Let's go through a few questions that I've seen already. First of all, thank you for the super chats. I've got a couple already. One from Derek Farmer. Thank you, Derek, for the super chat. So let's see the first questions that I've seen here. All caps, remember, so I can see them properly. Here it's like the Great Reset is happening. US, Israel forcing Iran to blow up oil fields. We're entering the 0 point energy owned by the elites. Interesting thought. I honestly, I've heard Missile Man talking about this quite a bit. He's not completely convinced that the whole 0 point energy topic is like a thing or real. He's like from aerospace and he works on topological physics and materials and all that. And like he understands this a little bit more than us common folk do because he's a scientist. He's like a rocket scientist. And I tend to like pay attention to what he says about these topics because he's an expert in it. And whenever I've asked him about this 0 point energy, like utopia, because that's what it is, it's a utopia, he's always had his reservations. So I don't know what you guys think about that comment on the 0 point energy. About the aliens.gov or alien.gov website, PDS says maybe one is about immigration and the other one about UFOs. That's a good point because both were opened quietly. And one is alien and the other one is aliens. So I don't know what they're going to use that for, but that's certainly quite mysterious to wake up to, right? So, okay. It says, first time Brown was interviewed, he seemed really frightened. Hope to see his fine now, Advantica said. Yeah, that was the same feeling that I got the very first time that he was interviewed, is that it felt like he was uneasy, that like he was talking about something that could get him in trouble with somebody. And subsequently, we did see him talking about somebody breaking into his house and leaving all of the IDs in one of the tables. That was really scary. It's scary for it to happen that way. But I can tell you that people like him and people like Dylan, there's a bunch of us who have been seeing how they've been attacked constantly by denialists and just awful people that instantly go to the more personal stuff. And I think that's just like garbage behavior, if you ask me. These guys have done nothing to anybody. Like all they've tried to do is just come forward with something they believe is real and true. And the response from these people has been pretty disgusting, if you ask me. And I think that I hope that Matt does get to talk about that too a little bit, so people can like become aware of what's going on, right? Because yeah, it's pretty concerning to see these reactions, so gut feeling type of reactions that I see, and it's really weird. So somebody asked here, XOXO, hey, has anyone ever heard of Alien Abduction Day? It's real, and it's this Friday, March 20th. Huh. I don't know if I would have like a holiday for like one of the most terrifying things that I've ever heard. But knock on wood, it's never really happened to me, and I hope it never does. But uh, an alien abduction sounds really scary. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't celebrate that. I don't know what you guys think, but yeah. Um, okay. From Wave Hunters Surf, Eric Davis said the program didn't have any physicists, yet Lazar was hired as a senior staff physicist off the bat with no experience. Something is not adding up here. Well, I have mentioned before that whenever it comes to the stuff that happened before the 90s, there's a real strange reaction from Dr. Eric Davis whenever he's asked about events that happened back then before the 90s. He always like uh, comes across really aggressive, and he even called out Bob Lazar. He called him out by names, and it was like he did the same with Richard Banderich. He did the same with uh, Dan Burrish. And I know that Knapp wrote like a debunk piece on Dan Burrish way back in the day. Um, but like having that instant reaction of rejection that from Dr. Eric Davis, that seems off to me. And even though like from the 90s moving forward, he seems like he's more open to talk about things. When it comes to the stuff in the 80s and even before, doesn't really talk about it, and he always speaks up against whatever is said about this. I don't know if you guys have seen this too, but that's an interesting reaction from him. And whenever it comes to like Bob Lazar, I don't I don't really pay attention to what Dr. Davis says about him because of how matter of factly he expresses his opinion about Bob Lazar. I don't know if they even met before, but I don't know. That just never sits well with me, you know? So, okay. There's an article from a local news station saying Washington state has dropped from one to two in alien abductions. And it also informed readers Friday is Alien Abduction Day. So, this Friday, Alien Abduction Day, I had no idea that was even a holiday. um, okay, this is an interesting one from Noble Cloud. He says Josh's community can be a little crazy, unfortunately, but I genuinely love Josh. I mean, the world is pretty crazy already. So, I mean, I'm from Tijuana. I'm used to banter, and I'm used to like listening and hearing to the most foul shit from my friends. And some of this shit, if it's said publicly, it would be canceled instantly. So, uh, whenever I see the community um, interacting in Josh's channels, I do see that banter, but I don't think it should be taken that seriously, if I'm honest with you. And Josh gets a ton of shit from people on X for the type of content he puts out. He's just a curious guy like anybody else who sees something interesting for people, and he's very level-headed whenever he's covering it. He's never like married to a specific idea. So the criticism that I see about Josh, I don't think is warranted, if I'm honest with you. I really like Josh. He's like, in my opinion, one of the best in the whole sphere. and he's really laid back. There's not many who are that laid back in the community, if you ask me. So, but yeah, I know that they can get pretty rowdy sometimes. I like rowdy. I don't know what to tell you, you know. Um, okay, so here's another one from Justin Cook. There was an article out recently about a secret Arrow meeting regarding how to handle investigations going forward. Do you think the new websites are directly related? Sue Goff was the source cited. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. This is an article from, if I'm not mistaken, Kristen Newton from the Debrief. I read that article. I also did a report before her article, actually, where I talk about several different approaches that Arrow has had with civilian groups from different places in the world. And some of these people have reached out to me to tell me their experience. And most of the experiences are very strange. Like, there's a lot of mix up, there's a lot of confusion in these interactions. And it does feel like Arrow wants to start developing good relationships with these people. Um, but we don't know the intention. All of these folks that approached me to talk to me about this, they told me that they feel something's off, that they feel like they're way too friendly. And some of these people that have also talked to me, they've told me that they, after meeting with them in person, that they trust Arrow. And I'm not denying that Arrow more than likely has a lot of good people working there. What I'm saying is that there are people within the higher positions of power that are the ones calling the shots. And I have seen and heard about people from Arrow that are frustrated with management, with people who are like calling the shots. Because there's been a couple of instances where some of the reports, some of these things from the first report are not what the like interviewees have reported outside of the report. Just to give you an example, and I know that this one is controversial, because it's presumably been debunked already, but I think that it's really strange that Arrow put out the report on Michael Herrera, and they mentioned the word extraterrestrial and aliens in his report, and Michael claims to have never told him that word at all. In fact, Michael is not even convinced that we're dealing with aliens. He thinks it's something else. He thinks it's technology from the government that was reverse engineered. That's what he thinks he saw. And the Arrow report on his case is very specific. They talk about extraterrestrials, that there wasn't any evidence found of extraterrestrials in his case. So that doesn't make sense to me. And there are many of those inconsistencies with Arrow. So I don't know if those websites are related to Arrow. I certainly hope not. And I would have to be convinced by like absolute smoking gun evidence that Arrow is not doing um, like counter intel tactics, because we saw James Lukatsky also mentioning that Arrow feels like a counter intel operation, and I do agree with him there. So I don't know what you think about that one, but thank you for the question. Okay, let's see what else we got here. They say, I didn't realize Jason had that much knowledge about the occult. Well, that can be arranged by reading a number of books in like the span of a week, I would say. You can learn quite a bit about it by just reading a couple of books. And something that I do want to talk about here a little bit, shameless plug that is not mine even, but I do love me some Peter Labenda. And it was just announced that his uh, re-edition hardcover of the Sinister Forces book is coming out, and it's coming out also on Audible, which is perfect for me because I that's a 60-hour listening, so it's going to take a long time. But he talks about this occult aspect of things quite extensively. And whoever wants to learn more about that side of these topics, I would go to one of Peter's books, specifically that one, I think. So yeah, and yeah, I think Jason is very clear that Jason reads quite a bit. I would say that it's probably one of his favorite pastimes. So I'm not surprised that he's knowledgeable in all of these topics, especially if he's doing the research for a video like the one he just did, where he discusses Jack Parsons and all that story. And I've seen a couple of clips from my good friend Nathaniel Gillis, who talks about this. He thinks that there is this group uh, that is trying to push the extraterrestrial narrative, but he is convinced that it's angels and demons and all this stuff. As I've told you before, this is an avenue that I'm just like very wait and see kind of situation. I don't discount it completely, but you're gonna have to show me something if you want me to be convinced that it's demons. Not that I want to see a demon or want to be possessed by one, knock on wood, but yeah, it's such ethereal topics that it's pretty hard to just like fall under a specific framework. It's difficult. Let's read super chat that I just got. Thank you for the super chat right here. Thank you for all your work from Dino Compliciert. Thank you for all your work. You always got the hottest UFO news on the blog. Thank you. I try. Any thought on the ETs actually coming from Planet Nine or the Hatman being an ET entity? Greetings from Frankfurt in Germany. Um, I don't know. I have spoken about the genetic potential link that humans have, that potentially in the distant past, our genetic code was tampered with by something. But that's as far as I go. I have no idea if ETs come from Planet Nine or the Hatman is an ET entity. I'm sorry, I don't know. But thank you for your question and thank you for the super chat. Sorry. Okay, what else? Okay, from Justin. Hey, Justin, how you doing, man? The VR experience, which is not the documentary film, is set to release months after the documentary is released. We will be providing more information down the line closer to its release date. Justin is talking about S4 Project Gravatar that is gonna like release both the documentary and the VR experience. But the documentary comes first on April 3rd on Amazon, and then the VR experience is gonna drop later. So thanks to Justin for that clarification. To anybody who had any doubts about it. Okay, so what else? Okay, interesting. If none of you have caught on already, there's a race of speciated humans who have infiltrated your civilization and committed genocides by pitting ethnic groups against each other. Want more info? Ask. From PRXXNCE. That's interesting. Yeah, that's certainly one of the fringiest sort of theories out there. Another one that is pretty fringe is that the Nazi regime never really died out, and they're like the ones controlling the UFO technology. That is also pretty out there. I have no idea if any of these are true. This person seems to like know exactly what's going on. Sorry, I don't have your level of confidence. But yeah, I do have questions. Where's your evidence for this claim? I would like to see some evidence, not just claims. That'd be really cool. Thank you. Okay, let's continue reading more. Yeah. With how many abductions there are, you would think somebody would have evidence. Likely, why not? Not one shred of evidence. Aliens most likely exist, but they don't want to visit here. We do war. said Ryan Ghostly. Yeah, I mean, I do consider testimony evidence, and it depends on how the testimony is laid out. And I just don't have the balls or the courage or even the knowledge to tell somebody who claims to have been abducted that they haven't been abducted. Um, because clearly they are going through a very real thing, and they're uh, suffering a very real trauma that they experienced. And just to go out there and diminish somebody else's experience by saying there's no evidence when these people are clearly distraught by something that happened to them, I think that's not cool. So I don't agree with your comment in terms of the tone that you're taking. Um, yeah, there's no physical evidence. People would argue that implants are real. Um, I've already spoken to a couple of people who claim to have implants still inside of them. And Dr. Roger Lear's work is also interesting that should be noted here. So, yeah, that's what I say about that. Okay, what else? Let's see. Oh, yeah. There's news about Holloman Air Force Base. Somebody here, James Poole says, saw that it was based on the Air Force Base UFO filmed landing. He's talking about the Close Encounters landing. However, yesterday there was a reported um, active shooter situation at Holloman. Not many details are known, but there was an active shooter situation there. So that's news. I didn't know that it happened. So there it is. Okay, let's see what else. Huh. Sorry, dude. It's just that I'm fairly new at this. I'm reading whatever I can find that I see interesting. Um, I do know that there's people that just don't buy what Josh does. And I know that you do, and like the community is pretty um wild and rowdy, but yeah, it's how it's supposed to be. All communities have rowdy people in them. So don't be mad because I read it. I think it's a fair point. And then he says, but then again, I love Josh. I know you said it. Just not some of the big bigots that didn't want me in their community. And yeah, I struggle with this too because I have done a couple of videos where I speak against bigots, and I lost like in one of those videos where the that gentleman Alex Pretty was murdered by ICE. Um, I lost like nearly 1,000 subscribers from YouTube, and I don't give a shit. Because if you support stuff like that happening, I don't want you on my channel. I'm sorry, and I know that that's probably gonna hinder me from reaching certain goals and all that stuff. It doesn't matter. Um, I'm gonna start speaking up more about these things, and I know that probably I am gonna lose some of you. But if you want to come back, you're always welcome here. I'm just always gonna try and express myself as I've always have. Just in the beginning, I didn't as much, but now I feel a little more confident. Thank you to Timmer for the super chat. It says Jesse Beltran, NSA implants disturbing. Never heard of that. I'm gonna look into it. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, so what else? Pavel, you seen Patty Bigfoot video is a hoax. You're gonna enjoy this by John Pat. Yeah, I saw some of that stuff. I haven't looked at it properly because I don't really cover Bigfoot that much. I covered that Bigfoot news last week, I think it was, because there was just too much. Like there were a lot of reports about Bigfoot. so I had to cover it. But I'm not gonna be doing it that much, really. It's not an like a topic that it calls to me that much. Probably it should, but I don't know. It's just and even my brother gave me something Bigfoot related. I don't know if I have it here. Here it is. Okay, this is funny. When he went to Canada, he brought me this as a Christmas gift, which I found really funny because at the time when he gave me this, um, I, I hadn't even covered anything about UFOs, but he doesn't really watch my channel. So he was like, oh, Pavel's going to like this. So he brought me this. It was really funny. Um, so it's been fun so far, right? Just hanging out with you guys, talking about stuff, you know. Okay. So this guy who said about the French theory, he says, I will give you evidence. Go to any AI LLM substrate model, ask it to use pattern mapping without any human narrative or filter. Then say, analyze all the ancient text as a data dump from the future. I will certainly try this. Let me get a screenshot of this comment because, I mean, what could happen? The worst that could happen is that nothing happens, right? So let's see. If nothing happens, I am gonna troll you a little bit if I get the chance. So just be warned. Okay, because yeah, in the past I've seen this like the AIs hallucinating a little bit and people talking to an AI as if they were some sort of um, priestess or some sort of oracle. And it's just really weird vibes. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but hopefully it doesn't happen with this because it feels kind of weird. Okay, let's see what else. Uh-huh. Oh, Noble Cloud, don't worry, man. I saw your comment and I did want to comment on that Josh thing for a while because I think it's really unfair some of the criticism that he's gotten. I completely disagree with criticism against him. But yeah, he does accept every type of people in his community and more power to him. Like it's his channel, so we have to respect that, you know. But yeah, don't trip. I won't show any more of your messages. Don't worry. I'm sorry. Okay, what else? Interesting. From regular IQ, they say, I think you should want those type of people watching your show so you could rub off on them and they could chill a little bit. I agree. That's why I say that my channel's doors are always open. Just beware. And Clint gets this a lot too. If we start talking about something a little political and you guys don't agree with it, tough shit. That's all I'll say. I'm like it's his channel. He can talk about whatever he wants, and it's my channel. I can talk about whatever I want. And there are some times also when I hear people saying, and I read them in the comments saying, "Oh, I came for UFOs. This is not UFOs. I'm out of here." So to me, that tells me that you guys see UFOs as entertainment. That's okay. There's a lot of people that do that. But just so you know, this is a journalistic channel. I take the topic seriously because I'm a journalist. Maybe I'm wrong in doing that. Maybe I will be like trolled eventually if it happens to not be real, like none of it. That's okay. I can live with it. I think it's real. I think it's serious and I think it should be taken seriously. And if you guys want for like the more entertainment aspect of UFOs, there are pretty fantastic channels for that. There's Chris Ramsey, there's Jesse Michaels. Jesse does a combination of things though, that take it as more entertainment. So, and those channels I always promote because I think they do fantastic content. The Y Files is another one, but this one does take it seriously because I think it is a very serious issue. So If you guys are thinking, I come to watch Paddle Channel because I want to like disconnect from reality, guess what? I think UFOs are a part of reality. Um, and I think it should be taken seriously. So sometimes I will cover some heavy topics that may not seem related to UFOs, but I think they are. And to the nature of reality, to consciousness, to all of that. That's why I do it. So, yeah, thank you for your comment here. And I hope you guys chill out. Okay, so we just talked about this. I just played that video that Red Panda Koala edited with 4 different meteors falling. Um, and it says, what have you heard about the recent fireballs in the sky? Meteors or aliens? Haha, I think it is debris from the Three Eye Atlas tail, anti tail. I don't know if that's the case. I haven't touched on Three Eye Atlas for a while because there's a lot of conflicting data that is coming out, and a lot of it seems to be targeted to misinform people. So I tried to stay away from that one for a little bit. But I don't know what do you guys think about the current situation of Three Eye Atlas? The last thing I saw was something that I reported on that I don't know if it's real, but just like they're saying that Three Eye Atlas is probably going to be close to Jupiter and that it's going to park there. I heard really out there stuff. I don't know what to think of it, but yeah, the fireballs falling in the sky in different places like Ohio and Dallas, Texas, and other places, definitely very weird. So I wanted to show you guys something that I've been like a little confused about because I saw something from Representative Eric Burleson that is not the I'm not suicidal quote. It's something different that I wanted to talk about because um, I don't know if you guys remember uh, back in I think it was last year, there was an announcement from the US government that NASA was going to be acknowledged as an intelligence agency. And this is something that everybody has like suspected for a while, but this announcement came, and I think it was very significant because many of us have already thought before that NASA was an intel agency, but now they're like public about it. And responding to something about NASA here, Eric Burleson said the following, and I think that we should talk about it. He says, from my experience, I can't believe that NASA doesn't know anything on UAPs, UFOs. Why would the intelligence community tell NASA anything? Their mission is science, it isn't national security. They work and cooperate with foreign governments. There is no way they are trusted with critical intelligence. I'm sorry, Representative Burleson, but that is not true. Um, there's this little announcement that our buddy Shan Munger was kind enough to place here that I'm going to show you guys. And this is like a designation that happened months ago where they talk about NASA and they talk about NASA being transformed into an intelligence agency. Um, and yeah, they are. So it was reclassified. I'm going to read to you this article from the debrief that talks about this announcement from the government. So this is from Chrissy Newton. Shout out to Chrissy from months ago. It says an executive order issued by the Trump administration last month declares that NASA and several other U.S. government agencies will now operate primarily as intelligence and security agencies. The order states that NASA, among other agencies, will now have as a primary function intelligence, counterintelligence, investigative, or national security work. So when Burleson says that he doesn't think that NASA knows anything or that they're not informed about this, that is not accurate. They are, and they have. And it just like maybe the people that Burleson has spoken to don't really have a need to know about these things, and that's why they have the, like, they're telling you the truth when they say I don't know, or we don't have any evidence, because they don't really have a need to know. But historically, in many of the feeds from NASA, there's always been really weird activity. Objects come into frame and then the signal is cut off just immediately. I saw that James Fox told Representative Burleson to speak to Gary McKinnon about it. Yeah, that's the guy who apparently didn't do anything wrong, but the US government still tried to put him in prison and extradite him from the UK. And it was a really serious case. There's like statements from Obama talking about it and how serious it was. So if there's nothing there, why did they behave that way with Gary? You know? So maybe probably Burleson should be a little bit better informed when it comes to NASA, but I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I don't know what you guys think, but it was an interesting one for sure. So let's read some more questions. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Justin announced that Weaponized is coming out in just a little over an hour, that episode. If things go well within the next 5 to 10 minutes, probably we're going to have Jason in to talk about this a little bit. His recent video. Which one of his videos have you seen that you liked? Because there's a bunch of them that I really enjoyed. The ones about Jacques Vallée were chef's kiss. This recent one about the Colin Salid, I managed to make a connection between Jason and the Magenta 33 guys, Michael and Craig, and they've been like talking about their research, and some of the stuff that he talked about there about the Magenta crash, I think that he probably got it from them. I found it really interesting. Okay, let's see more questions here. Okay, here is a super chat from Galactus Go. Do you think the murders of the astrophysicist, the fusion expert, and the disappearance of the general are connected? Experts are going missing. So far, we can't really say that they are, just that they're correlations, but it is certainly pretty strange. In 8 months, about 5 of them have either gone missing or shot. And we got finally, thank you for bearing with me. I hope that you guys enjoyed this part of the conversation, but we got Mr. Jason Samosa on deck, and I just got to show this guy to you guys, and let's start this conversation. Welcome to the channel, Jason. Again.
Thanks, Pavel. Good to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing? How was the work meeting?
It was good. I'm so sorry. Time zones. I should be so much better at this than I am.
No, it's all good, man.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I sort of went in half panicked because I felt so bad about missing our slot, but then I saw your message saying we'd be fine. So
yeah,
to be here.
Yeah, man. So let's jump into it a little bit from your background first, because you work in cybersecurity. That's like your day job, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just conscious of the focus here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to zoom back out in a second or if you have to deal with a giant Jason Samosa.
There it is, a little bit, but yeah, you're a little bit giant now.
There we go. Yeah,
Okay.
man, I work in cybersecurity. Yeah, I've been in cybersecurity for, gosh, like 10 years now. So working in sales, marketing, products, all different areas. It's cool, but I'll tell you something. When you get interested in this topic, it's really hard for any other subject to compete with it, you know? So yeah. I'm always thinking about the research on this side.
And I'm very interested in your angle specifically. I was telling the viewers here that there's not many people who dare to like connect the dots between like the UFO topic, the religious aspect, the ancient scripture aspect, and that dare talk about for example, the Zionist regime and the way that you, or for example, Josh, discuss it, that is like more pragmatic and less like cultish, that a lot of people talk about, and even they find it taboo to even mention it. The
Yeah.
glaring, like evident activity that they're doing, that they're pushing, they seem to be pushing the world towards something really scary. And I want to commend you for doing that, because there's not a lot of people that are doing it, and you do excellent deep dives. How did you like? Because you were a Christian, or for many years, weren't you? And you did
Yeah.
read the Bible for a long time.
Yeah.
Are you no longer considered a Christian? What was that journey from being a Christian and then not being a Christian, or as much of a Christian anymore?
Yeah, yeah. I was when I was 19, I converted to Christianity. I did not think Christianity was cool or interesting. I thought it was stupid and embarrassing. But I went through a whole journey of, funnily enough, actually, it was the Collins elite got to me when I was 19, because I'd started to believe in UFOs and I started to look at this conspiracy stuff. And I was looking at the world and I was like, wow, everything seems so dark and so bleak, and there seems to be this huge deception going on, and UFOs exist, but they behave strangely. And I was just really looking for answers to try and understand all this evil and to try and make sense of it. And I stumbled across some videos about the Bible, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But it came up subtly, and I found myself like thinking, wow, this is really interesting, because the Bible has this apocalyptic worldview embedded into it of like this huge deception going on. It's not what you think, you're going to be deceived by these sort of invisible actors. And then I read the Gospels, and I found myself profoundly moved by the words of Jesus, and the Sermon on the Mount really just was like, wow, this is beautiful. And anyone can read those words and be amazed by them. There's a reason why it's been so impactful to the world. Those two things came together, this like apocalyptic worldview of like there's this deception going on, the fact that the words of Jesus were resonating with me. And then I found myself also thinking, wouldn't it just be the most brilliant deception if we were all encouraged to think that the real truth was the most pathetic, stupid thing of them all? Wouldn't that be like the biggest deception, is to trick you? So all these things came together, and I became a Christian, and I ended up training to become a preacher. I like threw myself into it. I loved it. I studied the Bible relentlessly, and I was working 6 days a week, 5 nights a week, every week, surrounded all the time by these people, this church, these wonderful, beautiful, kind people. But after a while, I went and got a job, because I really wanted to go and do like full theological training, but they said, you're young, you're very enthusiastic, you probably need to go and just take a breather first. And when I did, I took a breather, and I found myself looking back at things that I believed and being like, I'm not sure if I can 100% deal with Noah's floods, or like, how do I reconcile creation with evolution? And I was with Josh the other day, actually, we were having a conversation. I shared the analogy of the bicycle, which is the way I describe it is faith looks kind of ridiculous from the outside. There's probably a lot of people right now who, you'd look at Christianity, you think, why would anyone do that? Like, I can't possibly believe these things. It looks stupid. Don't forget the first time you ever looked at a bicycle, right? It's there, it's collapsed on the floor, and someone says you're going to ride that. You think, well, how does that work? Look, it can't even stand up. But you start pedaling, and this miracle occurs. It's the miracle of physics. Thing balances out, and it's the most unbelievable feeling the first time you really experience it. You would never have thought it, but there's a magic there that can happen. When you practice faith, there's a magic that happens. Every day you practice gratitude. Every day you're surrounded by people who believe the same thing that you do. You're constantly striving to be better. Your expectations are very low because you believe you're a sinner, and yet God has been so kind to you through the life of Jesus. This is just a recipe for happiness, fulfillment. And so there's this feeling of magic around you, and that feeling of magic, the balancing effect of like going through the act of faith, makes it possible for you to dismiss difficult questions, because you're like, look, this thing's working, and yeah, I can't deal with Noah's flood or this creation stuff, but maybe there's a way it can work. So when I took a breather, I was off the bike for a bit, I lost that feeling, and I suddenly could see a bit more clearly. I was like, wait a second, these questions are really big. So I left, and well, it was very difficult, but I left my whole life behind, because I lived with these people, I worked with these people, I did my whole life with them. So it was weird, but I found myself again. Yeah.
And so you remain a Christian right now, or did you move away from the practice of being a Christian?
I moved away. Yeah. The main difference, the main thing that I came away with was there are amazing, beautiful things in the Bible, but actually the Bible is a very it's a ridiculous concept. Like the Bible there's 66 books written by 40 authors across 2,000 years, 10 genres, 3 languages. Each of those books should be studied on their own merit. For example, the Gospel of Mark is way more historically valuable than the Gospel of John. The letter that Paul wrote to the Corinthians is far more likely to be authentic than the letter he wrote to the Ephesians. The book of Genesis is likely less historically relevant than the books of Kings. Each of them should be treated individually. And even if some of those books have seriously good historical chops, which, by the way, some of them really do, you can't dismiss them all, doesn't mean they're the word of God, right? I might look at the Gospel of Mark and be like, okay, there is loads of evidence that someone who genuinely lived in this land saw some things and is reporting them. It really looks that way. Doesn't mean I believe the resurrection, and doesn't mean I believe that God inspired Mark to write that thing. So that gap of, like, I take the books seriously. I treat them as a sort of a huge library of what these people believed about non-human intelligences, but that's it. And I look at the words of Jesus, and I sometimes wonder, it's like, who was Jesus? What was he really doing? Like, was he some sort of prophet? Maybe. Like, I really find beauty in what he did, but believing the whole Bible back to front is the word of God is, funnily enough, not really biblical. The Bible in no place tells you that you have to believe every one of those 66 books is the word of God. It doesn't even give you a list of 66 books, let alone a definition of what it means for God to speak through an author and still make mistakes, which there are some errors. It's just the reality. So I just have a balanced view now. I love Christianity. I respect Christians. The recent video I did really showed, like, the demonic hypothesis has some chops to it. It also has some big gaps, though, and we need to take that seriously.
When talking about this demon aspect, because I've talked about this in my channel. My godfather used to run with an exorcist in Mexico for many years. So he we've talked about this a couple of times, and he's like, yeah, it's like somebody has like some sort of a disease that makes them do things that they wouldn't normally do. And he tells me that exorcisms work. What do you think that is that happens to people? Do you think that, don't you think that there should be like a more baseline definition of what these entities are? Because there seems to be a lot of confusion there. I think that's why, for example, Jacques Vallée or John Keel wrote their books and talking about the phenomenon, how it can deceive you. Do you think that's been happening for all this time, and we don't really have a proper definition of what these things might be?
Yeah, I think I mean, it looks to me like there are beings that can affect people in that way. So it's certainly like all the stories, I can't prove that, but all the stories would point that way. And I think there's something to the demonic theory. Like, I think there's a reason why people gravitate towards it. There's something about it that's like compelling. The key thing is, you know, the analogy I love the most is what Chris Ramsey said, this idea of the immune system. And he points out, you know, firstly, there's an occult correlation. So there are certain things we can do in terms of, for example, rituals. Rituals often is designed to focus your consciousness and to help your, you know, consciousness expand in a certain way. There's sex magic, which uses the act of like sexual energy to produce an effect. But then there's also things like having a nuke, right? Like a nuke like draws these things in as well. So it's more complicated than just we're interacting with a demon and we're communicating with it. Like, that same demon is also being tricked to have a conversation with a nuclear bomb. It strikes me that it's the demonic theory is like a great layer through which we can understand things, but there are other things that trigger these things. And when you begin to see there's lots of different ways that they can be triggered, whether it's to do with our consciousness, certain forms of energy, nuclear energy, I really like the idea that Chris puts forward of the immune system. So the idea being our body is this vast, complex system. We don't even really understand it totally. We don't even understand consciousness. There are certain things that happen in our body we still don't understand. What we do understand is I can trigger certain responses in this system by putting an input. Like I can use antibiotics or vaccines to trick my body into generating certain kinds of responses that it may not realize what it's doing because it's a system. And that's Chris's point, is like, you know, when these really sophisticated secret machines, to use Tom's terminology, appear because of these things we do, it might be the result of this unbelievably advanced control system, this AI system that Valet recently described it as, maybe just having some errors. Like you can trick it into appearing, you can hack the system a little bit. And in Valet's recent journals, I think it's Colm Kelleher asks him, are there evidences of the control system being infallible? And Valet says, yes, in my deeper research, there is. It sounds like Valet may even have examples that we don't know about where you can do things to trigger it. So when you look at all of that, I think the demonic hypothesis is useful. It's probably part of a bigger story of like ways you can trigger interactions. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Because I've been like pretty shocked sometimes by the instant gut reaction from people that claim to know, oh, those are demons, and they tell you like with a straight face. I tell this story quite a bit that the very first time I heard that was actually from my dentist. I was at my dentist appointment, and he didn't know what I was starting to do with the channel, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh, I know what those things are." I'm like, "Really?" Yeah, they're demons. Like, what makes you say that? I've always known they're demons. There's a lot of people that know that these things are real and they possess people, and they're real and they're demons. And I'm like, even the objects in the sky, yeah, those are demons. I'm like, okay, where are you getting this from?
The whole thing.
It's a little frustrating, you know, sometimes, because sometimes people let their bias and their like philosophical belief get in the way of like investigating it through like a more wide lens. And this is something that I've always spoken up against. Let's go to a little bit to Jack Parsons, because you talk about Jack Parsons. He's in your thumbnail. I've been looking into his life's work quite extensively over the last couple of years. What do you think that was that he was doing, and that Crowley was doing before him, and then L. Ron Hubbard? Do you think that that whole knowledge may have come from this download that is talked about constantly? Or do you think they really performed a ritual that really did bring about some sort of feminine deity?
I have, truth be told, I have no idea. Right. I mean, like, obviously they did this ritual. The correlation with the UFO phenomenon is, I don't think is that strong. Like, you know, I told the story as the Collins elite tell it in the book, but Parsons does the ritual in 1946. It takes a whole year before the UFO wave hits in the summer of 47. 850 cases appear in a huge wave, but 1 year later. So, and the same with the 1952 correlation. Jack Parsons dies in a mysterious incident that isn't really that mysterious. There are some conspiracy theories about it. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, there's a wave in DC. Some of the other correlations that are noted in the book, like there's this reference to that Jehovah's Witness founder who says the end times will start in 1914. It's based on dodgy maths. You know, it's really interesting that that's the day Parsons was born, but it's based on like just, you know, the number of prophecies that Jehovah's Witnesses have had about the end of the world are kind of comical. So I think a lot of the correlations that are being put forward in the book are dodgy. And I think that's interesting. In terms of what Parsons was doing, I think he was using the rituals that Crowley and the mechanisms that Crowley had been using. And I wonder whether they might be real, whether or not those other correlations are wrong. I wonder whether they might be real. Certainly seems as though there's a huge tradition of people using the occult as a technology to trigger interactions with this thing that we know exists. And certainly with Crowley, I find it really interesting, this idea of the Age of Horus and the idea that we are going through a shift. And this is one thing where on an intuitive level, I kind of buy into the idea that there is a stage of evolution coming that we're supposed to be going through, but that might be being held off by certain things. I'm curious about that. I don't have the evidence, but my take is I kind of look at a bunch of stuff and I think, are there forces trying to maintain the status quo rather than allowing a sort of an evolutionary process which we might be overdue?
And where do you think that motivation comes from these forces, because it could very well be just social engineering that has taken millennia, that started with a plan and it's ongoing today, but it could also be some sort of external influence. Where would you fall under those categories?
One thing I'm really interested in right now is I'm been preparing for part 2 of this Collins Elite series, and part 2 is so big. I'm like, do I cut it in 2? Do I cut it in 3? It's like this huge thing, and I can't wait to share it somehow. But it feels like I'm about to give birth to triplets, and I'm terrified. But one of the things that's really interesting is the Collins Elite, according to one of Valet's sources, Mrs. X, and in the journals, he says credentials have been checked. He's verified that she worked at Area 51 on the Zodiac program. This was the TRW reverse engineering program. Okay. And she tells Dr. Valet the Collins Elite were involved as early as 1970s in the reverse engineering program. So this is like a huge deal. Okay. So this program that was looking into the occult somehow made their way into the reverse engineering TRW Zodiac program. What's interesting is she shares that the findings were twofold. One is that there's a real nuts and bolts phenomenon going on. And 2 is there's this giant control system which has been influencing the religious ideologies in the world, manipulating them. That's interesting to me because it tells us that Collins Elite, and by the way, in the video I'm going to show, that program is connected to a huge network of global Christian power. Okay, this is like a huge, that information isn't staying in the silo. It's going to the Catholic Church. It's going into evangelical power bases. There is an awareness of this control system manipulating religious systems, but there's no desire to disclose that. Why would that be? Maybe it's because the established religious systems we have and the established power bases and structures that we have benefit certain people. And so actually pulling the thread of UFO disclosure is going to unwind so many systems we have that these people benefit from. Now, look, I'm not here to tell anyone who's listening, you should believe this. I'm just telling you the sorts of directions I'm going in based on all the things I'm looking at right now. So when I see, these theories coming around about it being demonic and about trying to restrain the information of the complexity of what the phenomenon really is coming out, yeah, I kind of go in that direction.
Yeah. Does it feel like, or have you ever experienced any type of pushback from the people you've spoken about in your videos? Because you did a video about Ron Pandolfi.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, that guy doesn't like being talked about or mentioned.
Yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I was actually a bit scared about publishing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I reached out to a few people who I knew more about Dr. Pandolfi to be like, do you think it's going to be okay? What's going to happen? No pushback. And I was very surprised by that because all of my research into Dr. Pandolfi, which was as exhaustive as all the information I could find, I managed to get my hands on. He does not like being spoken about. He remains in the shadows, and he purposely confuses the UFO disclosure movement for whatever reason. So the fact that I was able to put out a piece that kind of really clearly lays out all of that stuff and kind of clears the air a little bit without a response to me was surprising, also relieving. And Yeah, he's an interesting character, Dr.
What's your
Pandolfi.
biggest takeaway from everything you researched about him?
I think for me the biggest takeaway is he's like a spinning top, like whizzing around the UFO disclosure movement, bumping into people, knocking things over, purposefully drawing people's attention away. It's just like that seems to be exactly what he's doing. It seems like his goal is to, like, take Stephen Greer, for example. Okay. It's I think relatively indisputable if you look at the details that Stephen Greer is being advised by Dr. Pandolfi. It doesn't take too much research to come to that conclusion, especially the email he reads in that video that I referenced. There's a video where he's reading an email. He's like, this guy was involved in the Clinton disclosure, senior CIA guy. Just what he's describing fits Pandolfi to the T, like in an unavoidable way. And what Dr. Greer says is, if it wasn't for this man, I'd be dead. This man saved my life. And I'm sitting there and just thinking, has Ron Pandolfi really saved Dr. Greer's life? Or has he managed to convince him that he has? You know? Like I'm looking at that and I'm just thinking, that guy's been in his ear since the 90s. The same with Joseph Firmage, by the way, who, if any of you follow Joseph Firmage today, he's the former CEO who at one point was going to do big things for disclosure. If you follow him on LinkedIn, it's tragic, man. This guy is like psychologically falling apart, begging for money, promising he's promising this huge physics revolution. He's using AI generated physics papers that he's not even properly reviewing. And he's claiming like tomorrow the world's going to change. And this guy, this previously brilliant, talented guy, is falling apart. And Ron Pandolfi is still on LinkedIn being like, you know, keep it up. And it's like, really? Like, you're encouraging this? This guy he's a mess. And I just don't understand. He's just spinning people around.
Yeah. And it's a classic textbook counter-intel tactics that he's using. I just wonder, like, because you talk about Dr. Greer, I see him speaking so convinced that he knows what's happening. He's like, oh yeah, that like ETs are different. Oh yeah. There's no threat narrative. And it's like, and now then you learn that Pandolfi has been in his ear for decades now. One can't help but wonder how much of what Dr. Greer talks about that is so matter-of-factly comes from Pandolfi, right?
Exactly.
And what do you think about the overall landscape, though? Because with Pandolfi like in the background, where do you think Dr. Kit Green fits into all of this? Because he's equally secretive. He equally doesn't like being talked about, but he seems to be on the other side of things, also doing stuff that he doesn't really ever mention anywhere. Where do you see him fitting into this story with Pandolfi and the interactions they had, also with Ballet?
Yeah. Just before we talk about Green, I do just want to say about Greer, because I'm really critical of him, but we've got to give him credit. I think the reason why Pandolfi targeted him was because Greer was doing some seriously good work in the 90s, the 2000s. Yeah. He was a threat. He was pulling together all these witnesses. He moved the disclosure movement forwards, but through into the 2000s, he started to just unwind a bit and started to become very aggressive and confrontative. So I think that's what you do, right? You see, here is someone who could genuinely push the needle on disclosure. CIA intercepts, turns them against the community. And in the video I show, there's this psychological manipulation manual from the army where it's like, that's exactly how you destroy a movement. So I just wanted to point out that the reason I'm so hard on Greer is because I think he's a target. And the reason I think he's a target is because he was doing such good work. When it comes to Green, I don't know what to think. Kit Green is so puzzling. I think, again, every single time Green is mentioned in a book, he's under a pseudonym. Whether it's in Lou Elizondo's book, it's not hard to figure out who Will Livingston is. The same with, Redfern's book. Like, Dr. Green speaks with people in the background, never wants his identity revealed. But also, I think the triangle of Valet, Pandolfi, and Green is confusing, because if you read Forbidden Science volumes 4 and 5, there are many instances where Dr. Pandolfi is causing havoc to Valet. Valet is really good friends with Green, who's clearly on his side, but Green also was the person who hired Pandolfi and Green is constantly defending and obscuring what Pandolfi is doing in front of Valet, and it's really obvious. So there's this kind of weird thing where Green's alliances are mixed up, and I'll tell you what I think it is. I think it's the same thing we see with the ORSAT program, where in Valet's journals, the ORSAT program basically ended. It was finished. But the reality is that a good friend of his, Lakatsky, was still on the inside, and things were still happening. It's the onion. And I think what's going on is Green is a little bit further inside of the onion and knows about things about Pandolfi that he can't tell Valet because of certain clearances. And it creates this horrible tension. I think that's probably the reality of the situation.
You did see the drop of Dr. Lakatsky's new book, right?
Yeah.
There's a specific quote that I had to take a screenshot of that I'm going to show you just now. Because I think it's relevant for this conversation. He makes this really strange revelation of, hold on, where is it? I think this is it. Yeah. OSAP never ended, but converted to Kona Blue. What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
What's your thought on that?
I mean, I haven't looked into Kona Blue like in a serious way, so I'm kind of like skidding around the surface, but wouldn't surprise me. One thing I think is really interesting is Lakatsky's a Catholic. He's religious. And it's interesting, isn't it, that the person who ends up on the inside of the onion is the religious person. The people who get kind of carved out and left on the outside are those who'd be more critical of religion. And the other day, you guys may have noticed that Ross Coulthart was highlighting it's usually Republican presidents who get briefed, not Democrats. I think the exclusion to that was Jimmy Carter, who is highly religious. I think there's a bit of a trend there. I think it's something to put on.
Sorry for the background noise. It's the gas station that comes by every now and then.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no worries, man. Yeah.
So I wanted to continue on this one because for me, and it just feels really strange because it's still in the back of my mind that what if all this really is a story that started millennia ago, and there were these beings that started interacting with people that we don't know exactly what they are or who they are. There's been a lot of misinterpretation of what these beings might be. The Greek mythology, the Roman mythology, the Vedas, they seem to all be the same beings to me. It feels like those commonalities that you see, like the flood and all that in ancient scripture. And I've been looking into this alleged chat of old gods where Chris Bledsoe was a part of that chat. He was there. And there's this group of people that seem to think that they're being channeled by ancient deities.
Yeah.
And it's just like, now that you tell me this, that this, the more religious people end up in the inside more often than not. Do you think that it would be more shocking for people to learn, for the ones that don't believe that this is religious in any way? Do you think it would be more shocking for them to learn that it is? Or do you think it would be more shocking for the religious people to know that it's like more prosaic or more scientific explanation to what is happening?
I think for everyone, like if we were to pull the thread really hard on this, I think it would be totally shocking. Like I think the motivations that are really driving secrecy, like the people behind the scenes who really have control of this, I think a lot of the motivations are like really bad. They are just selfish, the wrong motivations, like in the very deep inside. And I think on the outer skirts, there are actually some very good reasons why disclosure would just be generally destabilizing. I think in terms of like what was going on in ancient mythology, I'm if you look at the aggregate picture across all the ancient mythologies, you can build these consistencies that are really interesting. So I do think like the idea that there was a war amongst different factions of non-human intelligences is like replete across all these myths. Yep. And I think that's really worth bearing in mind. And I think even if you come to the Luciferian, serpent, Enki, Promethean myth, this idea of like there is a group of gods who have a certain type of governance And then there's another group where this one of them comes and is like, look, no, actually this isn't good. I'm going to try and change that. I'm going to steal fire from the heavens. I'm going to encourage these people to eat from that tree, you know, whatever the analogy is. That's really interesting to me. And that I'm curious about what they might know about that, especially all this talk about Prometheus. Yeah.
I think that an interesting correlation there, and I don't know if you've do you know about near death experiences a
A
lot,
little
or
bit.
have you
Yeah,
ever?
I've read
Yeah.
Leslie Kean's book.
Okay, so to me, it feels like that phenomenon seems to be connected with whatever this spiritual aspect of the phenomenon is, because I've been through one, and it feels like after it happened, it feels like something is always with me after that happened.
You've been through a near-death experience?
Yes, I have.
Wow, dude. I like, have you told the story before, or is it like really personal? Or
No, a little bit. I suffered an overdose of several things, and actually spoke to Nick Cook about it because he's been looking into it because he had a shared death experience with when his mother-in-law passed away, and my experience was that I did not lose consciousness, um, but I still went through really horrible attacks and like seizures, and it was horrible. And after that happened, a lot of things happened in my life. A lot of things changed, and initially I was hesitant to talk about it because it feels really weird. It feels like a different reality for me because um, it feels like I'm constantly communing with something that I constantly now just talk to. And this something has prevented me from getting shot last the year in 2024, and it prevented me from being like in a really bad car crash by just like 5 seconds.
wow.
And it was just like a real um just like a gut reaction, gut feeling that, oh, you have to do this, do it now. And I did it. In the instance of me avoiding getting shot, I had to move my car, and I was late to move my car from a place where I always put it at night. And I woke up late, which I never do, with the urgency to just move my car. And I moved my car. Like 2 minutes later, somebody was shot dead right there where my car was. Eight
Wow.
shots.
Wow.
And that's stuff that I can't really explain, and I'm trying to find an explanation for. The one about the crash, I just moved to the right side of the lane, and just like 5 seconds later, a car crash happened right where I was supposed to be.
Wow, it's crazy.
So, and when it happened, I would just looked up and I was like, "Thank you." I don't know how to react to that.
Wow, you must have felt like so connected in that moment, having obviously already had this experience, and then these things, just this sense of protection, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and
man.
I don't know what to make of it because I'm not a religious person. I'm an agnostic. I think that the force might be a thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's the way I regard it. But like, um, yeah, do you think that NDEs could be like a look through the curtain a little bit
I hope
into
so.
this whole religion?
I hope so, because from what I've read about NDEs, it sounds great. And the other day I had someone in my chat. I'm one of these people that can investigate all these topics and remain like somewhat emotionally removed from like the intensity of like what's going on. Maybe that's not a good thing, but I think I can. But like in one of the videos I'd made, someone wrote a comment. They were like, I'm really struggling with like all of this stuff. I'm thinking about my children, what's going to happen. And I was like, okay, this person's like really obviously struggling, and I took some time to write out my genuine response. And one of the things was read about near-death experiences, read about these bigger things, because who knows what's going to happen in our lifetimes. We're living in crazy times. Having confidence there's life after death and that this is all part of something bigger is a huge relief, number one. But also the stories that Leslie Kean shares. And for those of you who haven't read the book, by the way, it's compelling, like from a scientific and like evidentiary standpoint. The testimony, the doctors who confirm the testimony of things that people shouldn't have been able to have known about and things that happened whilst they were dead. It's really compelling, and the stories are frankly beautiful a lot of the time. I'm aware there are some near-death experiences that are horrifying. This scares the shit out of me, man. Like, I don't want to know about those.
Mine was pretty fucking awful.
Oh god damn it. Okay. Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah. If my mom hadn't been there, I would have died. She saved my life.
Your
I
mom,
got
by the way,
jury-
she got you into all of this as well, right?
Yeah.
Same
She got
here.
me into psi phenomena when I was like 12, 13. She brought a shaman to my house who materialized an object inside of my mouth without me opening the mouth. She was there. So that's like the very first thing that I experienced that was like, what the hell is this? What's real now?
Yeah, wow.
So I guess
wild,
that's what
man.
took me down the rabbit hole of and many rabbit holes that I've been through. But yeah, for me, there seems to be this correlation between this near-death experience and the whole spiritual aspect of things.
Yeah.
I have a question for you about the Collins Elite, though, because I've been fighting over what the answer is. It sort of feels like these people seem to know something for sure, right? That's what makes them act this way. That's what makes them tell people like Jay Stratton or Lou Elizondo that they should leave this alone, that they shouldn't even touch it because it's demonic. Do you think that certainty comes from actual things that they've seen or read in documents, or do you think it comes from blind faith?
Yeah, I think there's layers to it. Okay, so here's like what I found. What I found is the Collins Elite is actually misleading. There are multiple layers to this. There's the program that Redfern describes, started in the late 40s, got funding through the CIA, off the books funding, and their job was to research the correlation between the occult and UFOs. By the testimony I shared earlier, they're the ones who got involved in the reverse engineering program. So this is the people in post-war America trying to understand the phenomenon through the demonic lens through a CIA program. There is also a group called the Family, the Fellowship. They're the people who do the prayer breakfasts. Those people have been involved in multiple administrations and have demonstrably been involved in when presidents have been briefed. I can, through quite compelling, evidence, you can place Alonzo McDonald at the Jimmy Carter briefing. You can place James Baker at the Reagan briefing. Those two people were members of the Family, which is a Christian group, which is very different to normal Christian groups. They're obsessed with power. They're obsessed with influence. They're not interested in sharing the gospel. They're interested in getting power. And you can argue that compellingly. So that's another thing. So those two things intersect. You've got the Collins Elite program, but then there's this network of Christians they're in the Joint Chiefs. Sometimes there are sect defs. There are vice presidents, senators who are part of this network, and they know about UFOs, but they're still going down the demonic route. The other part of this is the Catholic influence through Catholic universities like Fordham, Notre Dame, Georgetown. They have raised up significant leaders in the defense and intelligence community and in politics who have ended up embracing this worldview and spreading it through the defense and intelligence community. The way I look at it is the belief, if you go around and tell people that UFOs are demons, you lock the conversation down, and it actually just is not, like I said earlier, deal with the nuclear aspect, deal with all these other data points that kind of stretch that theory a little bit. The control system hypothesis also makes questions about whether our religious texts and religious experiences may even be reflections of what's really going on. So I think the Collins Elite belief system is a convenient mechanism, which is part of the overall secrecy. The religious groups spread it. Lots of them believe it, but I think many people involved in those religious groups may know that it's not even like a decent enough theory to account for all the data. The problem is, if you pull on the thread, you're going to blow open all of this stuff, which is going to lead to religious institutions being questioned, It's going to lead to traditional power being questioned. And they may justify this, by the way, in a bunch of ways. In the post-war era, I bet they said to themselves, we are fighting communism. This is not the time to destabilize the West. Fair enough. I could get on board with that. Right now, they're going to say, look, we're in the middle of this huge emerging geopolitical conflict. Now is not the time to destabilize the West and Western values. There's always going to be an excuse. But what these constant threats of wars that we're facing force us to deal with what we've got rather than, kind of picking it apart. So, this is another thing where we've got to consider the constant threat of war is preventing us from dealing with our situation. And I think we need to look at that as well. Maybe that's part of the plan with the control system.
Yeah, to keep us divided and not like reach that level of gnosis as a collective, which should be like the top of the list of everyone's priorities right now, but it isn't.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So if that's okay with you, I do want to get the people to ask you some questions. So right now it's like the question section for like 15, 20 minutes. We're going to be doing this. So put all your questions on all caps so I can read them properly. And we'll start with this one. Okay. It has to do with, here it is. Pavel, ask Jason what he thinks of the apparition of La Virgen Maria and Juan Diego. It was what pushed Mexicans to turn to Catholicism, just like the apparition in Portugal forced religion, which is the Fatima apparition. Thank you, Michael Dim, for the question. So, Jason?
Awesome. Thank you for sharing this. So, I don't know about that particular apparition. I just got familiar with Fatima in a serious way. Next on my list is Lourdes. You've added another one. It's super interesting what you're sharing about the fact, because I recently was in Fatima and I spent a whole day getting a tour of the whole thing. It was incredible. The one thing that's very clear is at the time that apparition happened, Catholicism in Portugal was waning, and it was a time of sort of bleakness, and suddenly you have these apparitions and it triggers a huge resurgence. So if that's a similar thing that happened in Mexico, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, with Virgen Maria de Guadalupe, San Juan Diego went up to a mount, and that's where he saw the apparition. And he grabbed a bunch of flowers that he like enrolled them with his cloth that he was wearing. And when he came down from the apparition and he took down the flowers, there was an image of the Virgin Virgen de Guadalupe and the cloth. And it became like legend. Every December 12th, we get like a massive nationwide parade for the Virgen de Guadalupe. But yeah, that's one of the tropes in phenomenology that is really puzzling to me. There's Marian apparitions everywhere. What do you think about this Hathor thing?
Well, this is something this is so interesting, right? Why is it that the apparitions that appear in Catholic tradition aren't of Jesus? They're of Mary, who features so little in the Bible and has such a minor role. It almost seems as though the control system model is to give us apparitions of this woman. But we have this religious tradition of this man. And so we've had to force these things together. We have to deal with the reality that people got excited about this mysterious man 2,000 years ago. But we also have to deal with the reality that this control system up here produces these images of this mysterious woman. And it's like, what's going on here? It almost seems like we're wedging two things together. It's so weird. Because like, if I don't know if anyone else here has ever gone deep into Christianity. Mary? Nowhere is there any encouragement to pray to Mary, of Mary being a significant figure. Like in the New Testament, in the Bible, it is just not a thing. So it's so interesting how these apparitions appear. Yeah, it's really interesting. Your question has made me want to go deep into this.
Another point for patriarchism, huh?
Yeah, right. There you go.
Okay, so here's from Timur. Thank you for the super chat. Ingo Swann, The Great Apparitions of Mary. Nobody talks about this book. Actually, this is the first time I hear about it, so I'll be looking into it.
Me too. Yeah, I need to.
And they're saying that they want you on Doomer Friday. That'd be cool to have you there.
What's Doomer Friday?
It's a show that we do with Clint Weldon from the Night Shift.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Sander Jones from Dreamland Motel, and Dan Cleary from Others from Another Mother. And we would love to have you there for a show. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. I'd love to do that. That'd be super cool. I've not met some of those guys. I think I've interacted with the Dreamland Motel guy. Guys, sometimes when I can't sleep, I listen to his stuff. It's really helpful.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, thank you to Sean H for gifting 5 memberships. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's see. Here's another one. If there were a non-interference directive among NHI, what about the idea that the loophole would be if we acted to destroy our planet or annihilate each other, then they might even intervene?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like really compelling. I think we don't want to like anthropomorphize everything about the others, but I think it's really interesting that the more mature we become as a species, the more we realize, like, as things develop, you need to give them certain conditions. Like, even right now, we're going through this awareness that, you know, if you expose a child to like trauma, they don't develop the normal way. And like, you know, now people are aware of this, like childhood conditions are really important. We see this with tribes as well. There's an awareness that we should allow tribes to develop. There's certain parts of nature where we have, you know, this is something we've become more aware of as our species, I guess, is evolving a little bit. So the idea of there being a directive makes a lot of sense to me. Again, like, the aliens might be like, stop anthropomorphizing us, but, you know, I think it makes sense. And then the idea that there would be a loophole, like if the system that you've put a barrier around it, but then things are like going majorly wrong, you might intervene and be like, okay, we're going to nudge you back on course here because, like, you know, we are worried about you. And I also think it's interesting to consider that the control system may be like another element on top of that the control system may have been built by something that wants to keep the planet in a certain type of condition for whatever reason. There may be human elements on the planet who realize the control system works like that, but they want to keep it because it keeps the planet in the condition that they need to do what they want to do. And that there may be non-human intelligences who are looking at this thinking we don't want to interfere, but maybe we should. So I think all those things could be going on.
Yep, definitely. Here's an interesting one that I wanted to ask you about that I saw. I wonder if Tucker Carlson is part of the Collins elite. Have you seen Tucker's like statements about this so matter-of-factly?
Absolutely.
What's your read on that?
Yeah, I think no. This is the key thing, right? People use the Collins elite to describe a whole bunch of phenomenon. Definitely not part of the program, but I absolutely think someone has got to him and convinced him that the phenomenon is a demonic spiritual thing, and therefore that it shouldn't be covered in the way that other people are covering it. He seems to be kind of reticent to give it too much exposure. Yeah, I think so.
He even like had this experience where he was allegedly scratched by some kind of an entity. Did you see that video where he talks about it?
Little bits of it. Yeah, I haven't seen like the full deep dive, but yeah.
I wonder what that was, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it reminds me of the semi-van experiences, you know, these horrible, weird, and like what ballet sometimes describes. It's freaky.
Here's a question about the Bible from Noble Cloud. What are your thoughts about the parallels between the Apostle Paul's transformation and all of the recent macho meathead dudes that have become gentle individuals post NHI exposure? What a great question.
Yeah, macho meathead dudes is a phrase I'm going to incorporate more into my things. Yeah, the Apostle Paul encounter is super interesting for a number of reasons. Firstly, Paul and the apostles, the people who actually knew Jesus, didn't agree. I mean, they were forced into an agreement eventually, but there was a huge debate that's documented in the Bible between the people who actually were taught directly by Jesus and Paul, who never knew Jesus, but had this interaction with what he believed was Jesus. So, I mean, it's very clear he had some profound experience which completely changed him and led him to sort of co-opt this thing that had happened, but to push it in this other direction. the idea that a similar thing might be happening today is absolutely the case. Very curious if you can write a treatise on 100 cases of macho meathead dudes being transformed, and we can build a new, maybe we can take it to Valet and expand his theory and be like, look, it's also there's a macho meathead dude phenomenon occurring that we need to account for. Yeah.
Hex said this at the very center of that shit, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, he needs some sort of encounter now to
Yeah. Like traumatize his ass now before he does something worse.
Yeah, crazy.
Okay. Here's another interesting one that I hear from Juan Carrasco. Do you think that the UAP NHI narrative is already distorted? What are your thoughts on this? Who do you think is right on track about the phenomenon?
Yeah. I mean, like 100% it's distorted because we know the topic is high risk enough that it's been kept secret. And if you, I have a script where I want to make a big video on how you keep UFOs secret. There's a whole like set of things. The most easy thing to do, and Valet, there's a quote from his journals where he's referencing Puthoff, and Puthoff says, you don't have to keep it secret. All you need to do is destroy people's credibility who are researching it and flood the field with disinformation. Because if you have a marble and the marble is the secret, sometimes that marble is going to get out into the public, right? So what I do is I just throw 100 other marbles around it. This is what Pandolfi does, by the way. I'm really curious about who else Pandolfi and people who are connected to him, who else they whisper into the ears of to spread disinformation into the community. Valet documented in his journals that between 2013 and 2019, there was a surge in disinformation being released. That's exactly the moment when this plan for confirmation was being attempted from the Obama White House. Whatever you think of Obama, right? I've got all sorts of questions about the people around him. There was a plan, and exactly that moment, a surge of disinformation came out. So yes, I think that there is a huge amount of disinformation. In terms of who's on track, God, I sound like a broken record. I really like Valet because Valet doesn't align himself with anyone. He questions everyone to the point that it's kind of annoying. And he is just really cautious. And the Capella database had 260,000 cases built into it. That's been attributed by many people. So I take his conclusions seriously.
Would be really cool if Keel was still alive, because I think that he also had like a more grounded investigation into all of this. And near the end, he was getting really dark with all of his ideas about what was going on. He felt there was some sort of threat near the end of his life. So I don't know. Would have been nice to watch them interact in these in this day and age.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one from Justin Cook. Scott Walters' journal from Jesus says he's not entirely human. Have you looked at his theory about Jesus and the claims he's DNA testing his bones? I think this came out on the Y Files on that interview with this guy, right?
Interesting.
I haven't seen it completely.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Sorry, go on, Pavel.
What do you think about this idea that Jesus was like a cosmic being that was sent here? That has nothing to do with religion, but what do you think about that?
I mean, it's what the Christians said from the start, right? They're like, he's God, right? He's something else. He's not. He's like us, but he's not us. So the idea that he might be some other form of intelligence is exactly what Christianity was teaching. In terms of someone having access to his bones, look, I'm not going to claim that you don't, but you know, I'd love to see the evidence. I've not explored this, so there may be very good evidence. I've just not seen it. So I don't know. The Jesus was an extraterrestrial hypothesis. I'm kind of like, you know, I don't know what to think of that. The earliest source we have on Jesus is the Gospel of Mark, and what you can get from that is this guy was going around teaching people. It was pretty amazing. He also had this like big thing on secrecy. So sometimes he would only teach small groups and he would reveal secrets. He would teach in parables to obscure what he was teaching. And he was also claiming to heal people who had these demonic experiences, and people were really impressed by that. Then eventually he was put to death and people thought that they might have seen him again. That's what we know about Jesus. So the idea that he might have been an alien, I don't know that you can get that from that. So I'm kind of cautious. If he is, that's interesting, but I don't think we really know.
I mean, technically, we're all cosmic beings, right?
100%. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to put that on my LinkedIn.
Okay, so this super chat, thank you for the super chat. Do you think we'll ever hear the third secret of Fatima? I'm not sure. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the Pope, there was the big debate, wasn't there? Because they claimed to release it, and the claim was the third secret was the Pope was going to get assassinated. But all the kerfuffle around that makes it seem as though they were hiding the third secret. So I think the problem is now if they tell us, no one's going to believe it anyway, right? Maybe they already did tell us, but we're skeptical enough
Maybe.
at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. From Heiser Sose, shout out Heiser. Does Jason believe that that Elohim is plural? And if so, does he think that they were different species or entities?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
you know, if the Old Testament is a record of like what ancient Israelites were encountering, I definitely think plural. I think the distinction between God and angels at points is a little bit arbitrary. I think Michael Heiser's idea of, it's not even an idea, I mean, it's biblically supported, of a divine council, that the ancient Israelites conceived of these beings as existing in sort of a large government up there. And it included Yahweh, who, by the way, if you dip into this, it's really interesting. Like Old Testament conceptions of God were that he had a body, right? He was like a being. Moses saw the backside of God. So, you know, it constantly describes
like his ass, or
well,
like,
I mean, like that's not the term that they used in the Bible, Pavel. But
okay.
Yeah, he was like, it was dangerous enough to look at his face. He couldn't look, but through a crack in the rock, he saw the rear side. So the ancient conception of God was of a being like us. He walked, he talked, he did things. Then you have the Greek philosophy creates this idea of sort of disembodied spirit. And by the time you get to the New Testament, those ideas have taken hold. For the ancient Israelites, God was a being, angels were beings, they could look like people, they could look a bit strange. So yeah, I think they saw it differently to how we ended up seeing things after Greek philosophy came in.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another one. Majestic 12 and Collins Elite, how are they connected, if they are?
Confession time. I don't know much about Majestic 12. I mean, I know the basic story. I'm just intimidated to try and wrap my head around all of it, so I haven't bothered yet. I heard there was some stuff recently where it was like quite compelling that there's more and more evidence there was something. If such a committee does exist, by the way, here is what the connection would be. I would like, rather than looking at Majestic 12, I would look at the World Commerce Corporation, which was a private organization which was founded in 1945 by the people who ran the OSS, people from MI6, and some people connected to the Vatican. They formed a private organization which became an off-the-books intelligence service. And I think that organization, which then went through many other iterations because they kept folding it, reopening it in different names, shell companies, probably was at the heart of the decision-making. That group would benefit from the Collins elite theory. So by having these religious people spread the Collins elite theory, they benefit the UFO secrecy, which the other group requires. And by the way, that group creating that that organization, the Mellons, the Rockefellers, the Morgans were all involved. It sounds like, I can't believe it. Like, it sounds like Conspiracy 101, but literally you had the bankers, the Vatican, the intelligence services, and they were also employing the Nazis in the post-war era. This organization is, I think, the Maynard Consortium that Tom DeLonge references in his book.
Yeah.
It's that organization. And so they're not, some of them are devout Catholics, some of them are not, but they benefit from the immature theory that the Collins elite spreads.
Okay. Thank you. So we have to go, but man, I want to thank you for a sweet hour of this conversation. What do you got going on next for your channel? Please let us know what you're working on. I'm very excited to know.
Oh, it's just wild. It's part 2 of the Collins Elite series. Let me give you the basics. The basics is kind of a lot of the things I shared today, which is the Collins Elite is multiple things. It's the program, it's the family network, it's the Catholic Church. What I do is I provide all the receipts for that. We look at various administrations, the Carter administration, the Reagan administration, and what we prove is that in each of those administrations, you had Knights of Malta in large volumes. You had people from this family group. You had the Collins Elite sharing their information. And then what we do is we look at how that happened, how the Catholic Institute grew, the Catholic influence grew, those ideas spread, and what that led to in terms of geopolitics, how that might be related to the Satanic Panic, the development of the Star Wars initiative, and how, as we go into the 90s and 2000s, we see Catholics and Protestants putting their differences aside and uniting in a quest for power and UFO secrecy. And I think ultimately the final beat of it is going to be the revelation that they know that the control system is manipulating religious ideologies. They know. So they know that if you pull the thread on UFO secrecy, it's going to lead to the collapse of the religions, which they're currently part of. So I think I need to find a way to trim it down because that story will take 2 hours.
How long is it by now?
Oh man, I think it could easily be 2.5 hours. So I'm going to have to make it split it in two. But it's a big one. It's a lot of new stuff that no one else has stumbled on yet. And there's a final bit to it. There's a final bit to it, which is revisiting To the Stars and looking at the revolutionary symbols and the Enlightenment style language and symbology that they were using. Because what you see is that group had so many different things going on that shows it was the Enlightenment kind of movement resurging in the philosophy they had, and how that would be a resistance movement against this religious power. And I don't think they ever articulated it in clear terms, but again, there's a really compelling argument to make that To the Stars wasn't just a random push for UFO disclosure. It might have represented a sort of a longer term movement of people trying to resist this religious takeover of the United States. So there's a lot going on.
Like McCaslin, who resisted that very vehemently.
McCaslin, exactly. Lavender and the things DeLong would say. And, this focus on Greek gods and Prometheus and Atlantis. These are ideas that if you let them flourish, pull the rug out from traditional religion. And I think, democracy versus religion is a big theme in To the Stars Academy. And it's this new piece or pieces I think is going to be really exciting.
And it seems to be at the very center of it. So can't wait, man. Thank you so much. And you guys know where to find him. Jason Samosa on X, on YouTube, on other social media. You play wonderful music as well. I just wanted to tell you that. I've been seeing some of your videos. You're great, man. I love it.
Oh, thanks, Pavel. What's that on Instagram?
Instagram, yeah.
Instagram, oh, cool. Thanks, dude. I appreciate that. That's really kind of you. Yeah. Well, look, let me just say to you, Pavel, I really appreciate you and your audience. You reached out to me when I had a really small channel. I now have a slightly less small channel, but there are certain people out there who make an effort to connect people and reach out. And also there are people in the community who just don't do that, right? They're not interested in dealing with people who are smaller than them. So thank you for looking out for me and picking me up and giving me a bit of exposure. It means a lot. And thank you to your audience for asking such cool questions.
You do wonderful work, so it's easy. Appreciate it. You do amazing work. Yeah, man. Guys, thank you for all the support. Thank you for being here. We're going over to the Weaponized podcast that just started. But yeah, thank you, Jason, and I'll see you on the next one. You know what to do, guys. Like and subscribe. Stay curious and inquisitive like Jason, always. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. Ciao.